What is up, TROC? My name is Cody Vannoy, and I have the privilege of serving as the communications director here for TROC in the college ministry. And I'm so excited to be giving you the last message of this series, which we're right in the middle of, which is back to the basics. And hopefully my voice holds up because I screamed really loud earlier for tacos, because that's the right answer. It's tacos and not biscuits gravy. No judgment, but that is the right answer in my mind. But if we're going to recap the rest of this series, we're going to talk about first Pastor Joe and Pastor Nick both had kicked it off and started it. So Pastor Joe did the week one. She talked about the Bible and just like the basics of it. And she brought up her Bibles up here and just kind of talked about like what she did. And then we talked about the REAP process, and that was like the beginning of it. That's how we started this series. And then the second was about Pastor Nick came up here, and that was our really long 2 extra hours after the service, which was awesome to experience. And that was about spiritual awakening, and that you're never too far from him, and that he wants you to come back to him every day after day, night after night. And then last week, Pastor Nick talked about spiritual awakening again. That's kind of been the underline of this series, and we'll even continue a little bit today talking about spiritual awakening, but then talked about how prayer and how that is a big part of it, and that to not pray for small things and to pray for big things, because we serve a big God, and he can do big things in our lives as well. And so today's message, I was able to sneak in. Pastor Nick was nice enough to let me talk about this message, but I actually brought up this idea and this topic because the Spirit brought it upon me last November or December, and so I've been really wanting to give this message because I feel like it's so important, and it's a heavy message. A little bit, and I'm not saying you're not going to laugh. There's going to be hopefully a couple laughters in it, and then there's going to be a couple moments where you're really going to have to start considering, how you go about your daily things and what you put priority in different things. So that's kind of a little teaser of what it is. And this series is and should be in a series called Back to the Basics, because if you're talking about how you want to serve Christ and how you are going to live your life as a Christian, this is one of the foundations. But so many people in so many churches, people don't want to talk about it because it's a difficult topic to talk about. So we're going to jump right into it. And the title of the message is 3 Ways on How to Create a Generous Lifestyle. And it doesn't sound heavy at first, but once we get to point 3, you're going to be like, I want to leave. Please don't leave after when point 3 happens. That is one of the most important parts of it. All right, but the first point of 3 different ways is, the first one is generous with our time. That's point number 1, is generous with our time, and it's serving others. And so first thing you need to know about time, it's not yours. The time that you have here on earth is not your time. Let me explain. The time you're here is given to you by God and our Creator. And when you understand that concept of it, it makes it a lot easier and makes more sense to go give it to other people. And you can say, well, Cody, I've got a lot of other stuff, and I got all these other things, and I don't know if that's how it works. But that is how it works, and let me also further it even more, because if you understand that concept, that means you still have a purpose here. If you are still breathing and you still have time on this earth, it means God gave you a purpose, and your purpose isn't done here. That's what that means. So if you understand that, it helps you understanding your purpose here and what your purpose is on this planet and the impact you can go have on others. And so we're going to talk a little story about it. The first where we're going to be at today is in Luke 10, and it'll be 25 through 37. So it's a story, and so I'm going to say the story, and then I'll help explain it towards the end. But it starts in verse 25, and all the verses today are going to be in the NLT version of it. And the verse is this, and it says, "One day an expert in religious law stood up to test Jesus by asking him this question, 'Teacher, what should I do to inherit eternal life?' Jesus replied, 'What does the law of Moses say? How do you read it?' The man answered, 'You just love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your strength, and all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself.' Right." Jesus told him, 'Do this, and you will live.' The man wanted to justify his actions, so he asked Jesus, 'And who is my neighbor?' And then Jesus replied with a story. And he said, a Jewish man was traveling from Jerusalem down to Jericho and was attacked by bandits. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him up, and left him half dead beside the road. By chance, a priest came along. But when he saw the man lying there, he crossed to the other side of the road and passed him by. A temple assistant walked over and looked at him lying there, but he also passed by on the other side. Then a despised Samaritan. I want to pause right there. So if you don't know this concept, a Samaritan is like the worst of the worst people that the Jewish people thought. Like it was like their enemy. Like they didn't like these people. They were the people that they thought that they should go to hell. They did not like these people at all. Samaritan it was not in the Jewish culture. They did not like the Samaritan. So it's important when Jesus says this, he says, then a despised Samaritan came along, and when he saw the man, he felt compassion for him. Going over to him, the Samaritan soothed his wounds with olive oil and wine and bandaged them. Then he put the man on his own donkey and took him to an inn where he took care of him. The next day he handed the innkeeper 2 silver coins, telling him, take care of this man. If his bills run higher than this, I'll pay you the next time I'm here. Now, which of these 3 would you say was the neighbor to the man who was attacked by the bandits? Jesus asked. The man replied, the one who showed him mercy. Then Jesus said, yes, now go and do the same. And if you catch what happened in that story, you have somebody who is a religious leader, so let's say a pastor of some sort, someone who in most communities is supposed to be someone who's supposed to be full of love and compassion because they talk about it all the time. And instead of him going to them and to that Jewish person who was sitting on the side of the road who was nearly beaten to death, they walked on the other side of the road to avoid. And then a volunteer, basically, is another, it said another someone of the temple. So when I was reading it, it was basically a volunteer. A volunteer of the church of UC who comes every week, serves, does all this stuff. Same thing, other side of the road. And then in the Jewish culture, their enemy, the one that isn't supposed to be kind, the one who isn't show compassion, ends up being the nice one and compassion, ends up taking care of them. But in the story, I say all of that story to explain our first topic, which is generous with your time, because if you notice, he gives his time first. There's a lot of moments in our lives where we're going through a bunch of different things, and our lives are so busy with so many different things that we say we don't have time. We don't have time to do that. We don't have time to do this. I've done this plenty of times, occasions before, where you see someone on the side of the road that needs maybe help, or you see the cover of the engine's up, and you know you've got some jumper cables in the back, or you've got something at least going to ask, and instead of you stopping and asking, you just keep going by. I've been there, I've done it. And so we have these moments where we have opportunities that God gives us to pour into people or help people, but we choose not to because we just say time. So the Samaritan gives him his time first, and then he gives us other things, which we'll talk about later. But he gives him his time first. And then that brings us to our second point, which is generous with your talent, which is serving. And in 1 John 3, 18 through 19, it says, dear children, let's not merely say that we love each other, but let us show the truth by our actions. Our actions will show that we belong to the truth. So we will be confident when we stand before God. Let's be honest. I want to make it very clear that God gave each and every one of you in here a gift. It may not be the same. You may be sitting next to somebody where that gift is similar. For me, when I had people out, and when I was on the baseball team, I would sit with the baseball guys a lot of times. So I had a gift similar to them, but maybe they didn't like talking in front of people. Maybe they didn't want to do this, but maybe they could go do other things that I couldn't do. Right? So you may have similar gifts, but you have a specific gift that is designed for each and every one of you in this room. And it would be a shame for us to not use that gift. And you can say, well, Cody, first we talk about the time, right? Well, I have my time, and it's like, okay, well, I would want to come serve at the church, but I don't know what I can do. Well, let me give you some examples, okay? If you have a great smile and your breaths don't stink, you can be on our greeting team, because they're going to be holding the doors, people, and they're going to be on the doors, and they're going to be holding the doors for people. And so obviously, if you have a great smile and you like smiling and you don't have sticky breath, we got a spot for you. If you like to deal with like technology and stuff like that and different things or sound and stuff, we've got production up top too, and lights and stuff like that. If you like to serve people food and one of your love languages like serving others and serving others with like food and stuff, and you just like doing it, then we've got a cafe team for you, right? If you like social media and posting, you like social media, we're going to start a social media team that I'm going to help lead, because we want to be able to express people and what we do here, and we want to share it with people, out with more people in Stephenville, but also outside of Stephenville. We're going to be starting a social media team. And then if you like walkie-talkies and directing people, we have a host team If you get to be on the host team here, after I told people of the host team that you get a walkie-talkie, we had like one person at the start of the year. We've got like 10 now because they get to have a walkie-talkie every week, and they get to tell people, you sit here, you sit here, you sit here, and they're like, I got a little bit of control, right? So if you like doing that, you'll be like that. But if you're sitting next to someone who likes to control you, don't look at them. Don't look at them right now. Just look forward, look at me, don't say nothing. You can think it internally, don't look at them. I said to not look, don't look at them. But I want to share a quick story of how I started serving, and I shared this the last time I was up here. I started serving to meet girls. And people are like, that was really bold of you to say when you said that. I was like, it was the truth. Now, it was to meet like Christian girls. That's how I thought it was going to be. And it was the truth. And granted, it wasn't here. I was like 16, okay? So you can give me a little bit of a break. But it was true. I was like, I'm single and lonely. I want a Christian girlfriend. I'm going to start serving at the local church. And I started serving, and I didn't end up finding a girlfriend there. But that's how I started. But it turned into being where I found a passion for serving, and I found a passion to serving others because I saw that if I had a bad week, the people that you can connect with there can help you out. And then when you're having a great week, you can help them, but you can also help somebody who is in the auditorium or wherever, and you can tell they're having a bad week, and you can go put a smile on their face, and that can maybe help them through that week. So I realized the importance of it. So my why when I first joined wasn't good, but I started serving, and because I started serving, God's power and love so powerful that it shifted me into the next mindset. Now this is our third topic, and this is the one where I said that it'll be a little bit heavy, so I'm going to take a sip of water first. But what the third one is it's generous with our treasure, and it's tithe. And so I want to preface something. We're talking about this, and we're not going to take an offering tonight. When God's Spirit put this on my heart, I said, I want to talk about this at TROC for someone who's my age, who's 23, who's in the master's program. So I'm still in the college life, but I also have work too. So I'm still have both feet in both buckets. I'm not fully an adult, and I'm not fully a college student. I'm both. So I both. So I feel like I have not a lot of experience, which is great about talking about this, but I have very, very little. So this is why I think it's important to talk about this, but this is so important and so important to the basics of our faith, and people don't talk about it because they're afraid, they're just trying to get money. I'm telling you right now, we do not want you to tithe tonight. We're not taking it up. So I say that to say that's how important this is. So as we get into it, keep that in mind. So our first verse we're going to look about this is 2 Corinthians chapter 9, 6 through 10. And it is, remember this, a farmer who plants only a few seeds will get a small crop, but the one who plants generously will get a generous crop. You must each decide in your heart how much to give, and don't give reluctantly or in response to pressure, which is why we are not doing a tithe tonight or a offering. For God loves a person who gives cheerfully, and God will generously provide all you need. Then you will always have everything you need and plenty left over to share with others. As the scriptures say, they share freely and give generously to the poor. Their good deeds will be remembered forever. For God is the one who provides seed for the farmer and then bread to eat. In the same way, he will provide and increase your resources and then produce a great harvest of generosity in you. So that's part of it to tell you what I just said. And then also, this next part though is, so this is the part where it's going to get really personal for me. I'm going to be sharing some stuff that's very personal, and it's not to be like, oh, well, look what Cody's doing, let's do this stuff. It is to provide context. It is to provide different things on it. It's to provide perspective of it. And to go with that, the verse when I was looking at this stood out to me immediately, and it was Matthew chapter 6, 1 through 4. And it says, watch out. Don't do your good deeds publicly to be admired by others, for you will lose the reward from your Father in heaven. When you give to someone in need, don't do as the hypocrites do, blowing trumpets in the synagogues and streets to call attention to their acts of charity. I tell you the truth, they have received all the reward that they will ever get. But when you give to someone in need, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. Give your gifts in private, and your Father who sees everything will reward you. And so I'm going to share with you what I tithe. I tithe today. And I share that verse to say, I'm not doing this as a boastful thing, like, oh, look what, I already said that. It's to, I have the pleasure, and Pastor Nick and Pastor Joe and the leaders of this church have blessed me with an opportunity to share my testimony, what I have, my knowledge that I have learned over, and what I feel that is important to share. And so for me, I felt like, man, I really want to share people honestly. So I took a screenshot of it. I did it on my phone. I'm not putting like a simple number. I'm taking screenshots of it to you to see exactly how much it is, and then I'll explain part of this too. So the image is, this is how much I was today. So there it is right there, $256.25. You can see it up there, March 1st, 2023 to present. That was it today, okay? And we're going to get to what these numbers can do. But that was month to date. If I had done this, I didn't show what I've done to this month because I just started working a new job, so it started paying more. And then we've got, the next slide though was last year. What was the next one? The next slide is last year, $171 for the whole year. And you're like, wow, Cody, you really slacked off. No, that's how much I made. That was 10% of how much I brought in because I was still playing baseball. And now when you're done with baseball, your dad calls you and goes, hey, you got to pay some bills, right? So that's how much it was last year. And so I share those two because that is perspective of it. I don't know how much you make if you take in any income or if you don't. Or whatever. When I first started, it was funny. I actually was tithing like my dad's money when I first, because like I understood the concept of it. My dad's like, don't tithe what I give you. I already tithe that money. That's extra. He's like, don't tithe the money I gave you, because then he's like, that's already been tithed. So I share that to you. But what I give per month, and so there's these numbers here for a reason. So I give $250 a month in tithing, which is 10% of what I'm bringing in, and I share that to show like what that could give. So I like video games. That gives you 4 brand new PlayStation video games every year, or each month, and so yes, PlayStation, because PlayStation is better than Xbox. You can find me about that later. But then that can also, 250 months could also have, like you could have any streaming service you want. Think of any of them, even they're all ridiculously high now. You could still afford all of them with $250 a month. If you're a boots guy, you can have 2 really pairs of nice boots every month. $500, think of that, how much you can have a pair of boots. If you want to go get boots, go talk to Zane after it. He'll take you to Saddle Rags in the morning. If you're like Pastor Nick and you like Jordans, are really expensive, you could pay for Jordans like normal, or you can get like a really limited edition ones the next month if you wanted to. If you doubled it, like that, also do it too. And if you're like a Lulu person, that gets you like 3 things, right? Like the whole month. Like if you want Lulu, it gives you 3 things, right? And so I just want to show the excitement of that. So when I had this idea of showing this, I was like, you know what? I want to contact my sister Bailey with this. And I was like, I don't know like how much makeup costs. But I was like, I wonder how much, because I was thinking about different things. So my sister texted me. She goes, I got you. And she was like, okay. And she was heading on a bus. She's in North Carolina, Charlotte. She's traveling to Arizona today. And she's like, okay, I'm traveling to the airport. I'll do it. And I kid you not, 5 minutes later, I saw the list. And so we have that image, a screenshot of it. And here it is. And I say, long list of different things. So guys, buckle up, okay? So there's a bunch of different things, like an e.l.f. grip primer. What is an e.l.f.? e.l.f., what, like all these other different things. It's a brand. Why do you need brow gel? Loose setting powder. Why do you need loose setting powder? Like, it doesn't supposed to stay. Why does it need to be loose? Like, all these other different things on here that make no sense to me that I didn't. Sky High Maybelline mascara. I don't know what that is. All right. And she was like, that's all things. She goes, but it varies in variety. Okay. And then the next one was my response with it. The next slide was, wow. This is more than I was like, this is perfect. And she said, you said specifics. And this is actually what she does for a makeup thing. And she's like, tell them how much your awesome All-American sister is, because she was All-American in softball. And I was like, okay. So I'm going to screenshot it. So, and then to show you what that produces, there's a photo of what it produces of all that makeup. And that's good. So yeah, that's my sister. That's her game day makeup with it. And I was like, okay, so if you have a girl or you have a wife like that, that's how much it costs. There you go, $250 a month. And I'm learning it's a non-negotiable. Like, it's happening whether you like it. So you got to budget out how it's going to figure out, because it ain't going to happen. That's not including nails. That's not including hairs. That's the basics of it, right? Like, just as basic as it is for us for clothes, guys, that's theirs. I'm just saying, preparing for you, right? Okay? So, but you have to think about it this, though, is when you have income coming in and expenses, you shouldn't think tithing as an expense. And you shouldn't think of income as income. The best way to do it is say income is God's provision meaning it's not mine. God's giving this to me through the works that I do with my church. And then your expenses are my investments. Because then you ask yourself the question, how much of God's money do I need to live on per month? You have to ask yourself that. You have to ask yourself, how much money of God's money that he's giving to me per month do I need to live on? For my sister, it's $250 a month for that stuff, right? Obviously, it lasts longer. And that's okay. She does her stuff. That's her. But how much do you have to ask yourself that question? And you're saying, well, Cody, that requires sacrifices. It is. It's going to require you to sacrifice with it. Do you need to live on 95% of God's provision for you to live per month? And so you have to ask yourself those things. But you've got to be very honest about what those are and what your plans are. And we talked about, and we laughed a little bit about what, my sister spends on that and then wants other stuff. But part of the reason why I also shared you how much I make is I'm going to also show you what that can do per month for someone who's not working a full-time job, who's not bringing in, $100,000, $200,000, $50,000 a year. I'm going to show you it. And I don't know if you all know this, but we do outreach every Wednesday. And that's $50 to $75 per week. That pays for outreach for a whole year. And we actually only do outreach for 9 months of the year because we're not here during the summer. So there's even leftovers there, an extra $1,500 after that, right? That also pays for, if y'all don't know, that normally we do it for freshmen, but we do it for everybody. Our McDonald's event every year that we do, beginning of the year, is about $3,000. For the year, $250 a month, multiplied by 12, that's $3,000. That pays for that whole event, right there, one person, $250 a month. And then I think the most famous event, the best event that we do every year is our Mugs and Nugs. It's our big event every year. This year we broke our record of attendance. It was absurd. I famously got on stage and said, we will have plenty of nuggets because we had stuff. And then we ran out very quickly. And I heard about it the following week. That's about $3,000. That pays for that event right there. And I'm one person. I'm not trying to say that to gloat or anything at all. But there's about 400 people in this room. And you can say, well, Cody, mine doesn't, that's not a lot for me. Like, I can't give that much. That's okay. But guess what? If you have 10 of your friends, 10 of y'all, and y'all each give $10 a month, you're going to surpass what I'm giving per month, right? And so those are the type of stuff. And we're not even telling you to invest it here. You can invest it in other places, but that's telling you because it's going to be sacrificial for you to give that up first. That shows you where your priority is. So when you do that, that is important. Matthew 25:29 says, to those who use well what they are given, even more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who do nothing, even what little they have will be taken away. If you want a spiritual awakening in your life, you have to start a habit of living and having a generous lifestyle of giving too, and of tithe, and of money, because where you spend your money shows you what you find important. And you can't give, you're not able to give at the end, because not only is, you may ask, oh, Cody, why is it tithe? Why is it 10%? Well, it's 1/10. I had to ask that 1/10. That's what tithe is. So where did we get that from? That's the 10%. But it's not even in the amount that's important. It's also the order. So you can't go do your monthly expenses, your everything else, even the important stuff like your car payment, the school bill, all this other stuff. You do all this other things when you have all your stuff for your student debt. Once you get out of college or whatever it is, you do all that stuff first and then give God at the end, because you didn't tithe, you tipped. You tipped God like, hey, this is my extra at the end. That's what you did if you do that. So you have to do it first before anything else. You tithe first. And if you do that, then that's scary. It is. I share with you that 250 because it's not to be, like I said, I'm saying it over and over again. It's not to me, because that isn't the easiest button to press when you put your credit card in and then you put, I'm like, you're about to press it and you're like, $250 is a lot a month, $3,000 a year. I'm giving to a church and I'm just sitting there and I'm like, because it's not easy. And so when you do that though, that's when God shows up, because you say, God, it's not me. I give it to you. I don't know how I'm going to pay for groceries this month, but I trust you. I don't know how I'm going to get gas in my car, but I trust you. I don't know how I'm going to get to that place or do that event that I want to do anything, but I trust you. I give you first. I give it to you first because I trust you, because you are a powerful God, and I give it to you. And I haven't had a lot of experiences with paying and a lot of time of paying bills and stuff like that's very recent for me. So it's part of the reason why I shared my story today. But I do have a quick story. And it is for our Vietnam trip that's coming up next Friday, which is crazy to me that that's happening already. And when the idea of the Vietnam trip first came up, I was sitting there going, I don't know how I'm gonna pay for it. It's a $2,800 trip for us to go. And I was like, I don't have money. I had just started a job, or I hadn't started the job yet, because we were given this idea back in, I think, November or October. At the time, I had just now decided I'm gonna quit baseball. I had no job lined up. I had no money set aside. Definitely don't want to ask my parents for $3,000. Hey, can I go on this trip and not have a job? But I said yes, because God was telling me, go do it. Go do it. There was no hesitation. And I was like, okay. So when you say that, when you get excited for the trip, that's like God saying, hey, I've got a plan for your life. You get excited. You start seeing the vision. He's given the vision to us, and we get excited, and that's the Vietnam trip. And then you hear about the cost, and you're like, well, there's a lot of obstacles in this journey of thing called life, and I don't know how I'm going to do it. But yet you sign up for the trip anyway, and that's you, God, saying, God, you know what? I don't know. I don't know how you're going to do it, but I trust you. I'm going to do it. I'm going to go do that thing. I'm going to go change my major, even though everyone says it doesn't make sense. I'm going to go do that thing. I'm going to break up with him or her, even though we've been together, or whatever it is, because God told me to. And you're like, it doesn't make sense. I don't know what it means, but I'm going to trust you anyway. So that's what it was. So then I have an idea for the fundraiser. And then I start the fundraiser, and that's God providing an opportunity, saying, hey, look, I'm providing you with opportunities. You know, and that's what it looks like. And it doesn't make sense, but we're going to do it anyway. And then some money comes in. You start saying, oh, God, this is perfect. This is exactly how I expected it to happen. Some money starts coming in the fundraiser, and you're like, yep, this is exactly what it's supposed to be. It makes sense why you told me to do it. And then you hit the bumps in the road, and the money stops coming in that fundraiser. And I'm sitting there going, oh, I don't have, the leftover with it, and we're leaving in 3 weeks. I had that conversation with myself internally at the start of this month, and I was like, I leave in a month, and I haven't, not even close to my goal. And then something crazy happens, because when even though I don't hit the fundraising goal at that moment, I had my fundraiser, I was doing a raffle on Sunday. That was the raffle, and I was still quite a bit short. And I'm sitting here on the stage on Sunday, and Cass, who does hosting, sits there, and he's like, hey, you're doing your fundraiser, right? Didn't even bring it up to him. And he said, hey, you're doing your fundraiser, right? And I was like, yeah. He was like, pulls out his wallet and gave me what cash he had. And I'm not going to disclose that amount, but he gave me a lot of cash that he had in his wallet. And he was like, I want to bless you. And then later in the day, another individual comes up and they pay, and then another opportunity is provided, and I get that. And sure enough, at the end of the day, I hit the goal. And I was several thousand short 2 weeks ago. And I woke up on Sunday going, God, I have no idea. I don't know how I'm going to do this. And it wasn't like I went out of my way begging. And you can say, well, Cody, that just happened by chance. And I remember sitting in 2 weeks ago when I first got my first paycheck, and it was a little lower, and it was like 180, 160. And I was like, I don't know if I can give this money away. Like, you know how many Whataburger meals that is? Like, that it sounds dumb, but that's how it was. That's how I was thinking. I was like, that's like 12 patty melts, meals, large, everything, large fries. And I was sitting there, and I truly believe when you do that and you give, God blesses you in ways where that happens over and over and over again. And I don't know how. I don't know how, but it showed up. I don't know how, but God, you showed up. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. But what it did, and I chose, and I said, God, I choose you first. I choose to sacrifice the drinking on the weekends. I choose to not go to that concert. I choose to not do these different things because, God, I choose you first. And I want you to use me as vessels for your kingdom. And when you use, like, a great way of explaining it is like a water hose. If you have a water hose and you grip it really tight, the water can't go through. It can't flow through. But if you let it open, the water flows through. And that's exactly how we do it. If we do this with our finances and our time and our talents and say, God, I'm using it for my purposes and my purposes only, and you're not allowed to touch it, well, then God can't bless you a whole. He will still, but he can't do it to the fullest because you're not letting him in. You're not inviting him in. But this moment as you drop on your knees and you say, God, it's yours. You gave it to me anyway. It's yours. I'm not holding on to anymore. That's when God can bless you. That's when he starts using you. That's when he starts having you impact people, and that's where you get to start. And all starts with doing a generous lifestyle. And in Proverbs chapter 11:25, it says, the generous will prosper, but those who refresh others will themselves be refreshed. You feel tired, you feel burdened, you feel like life's got you down, and you're just like, I just don't know how I can handle all of it. Great way to start is doing your time, finding out what your talent is, and saying, God, here's my money. Because that's very sacrificial. And then when he shows up at the end of the month, and that thing happens, and someone says, how did you do it? I go, I have no idea. I have no idea how it happened, but God showed up. And you're saying, well, I don't know how to talk to people about Jesus. Tell them that story. You tell them, well, there's a situation in my life, but God showed up. And they go, how do you know? I just know, because it doesn't make sense. And that's where our God works all the time, is in the it doesn't make sense, I don't understand category. Because he lives for the moments where somebody says, how does it make sense? It doesn't, but God makes sense. And that's what we're looking for. Let's pray.